You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
So if coffee is an integral, super important part of your life, and you're having a tough time deciding, what city should I live in? Maybe you need to consider Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Milwaukee is the best coffee city in the USA, a recent study found. Survey says, do you remember that from, what was that TV show? And it was the guy from Hogan's Heroes. I'll remember. But survey says Milwaukee, Wisconsin, best coffee city in the USA. Better than Seattle? Yeah, probably. Now, here's the caveat. I don't drink coffee. And that's because as a little kid, I was always out looking at real estate projects with my dad. He drank a lot of coffee. We didn't go to 7-Eleven. I would have to hold the coffee cup because this was in the 70s and you didn't have coffee cup holders because coffee to go wasn't a thing yet. So I got to be the coffee cup holder. It was hot. It spilled on my hand. I didn't like it. I didn't like the smell. As an adult, I don't drink coffee. Never had a cup. But I'm not going to let that hold me back from doing a podcast to tell you about the important cities that coffee is a big thing. All right, that's what we're doing. Okay, so some of the criteria here, and it's not necessarily that Milwaukee is the best city for coffee, as so many of these studies, come up with. It's like, it's the best. Well, that's because you had such a narrow criteria. But the criteria on this one is interesting. It kind of comes down to how many coffee, stores do you have, the average cost of a cup of coffee, and what percentage of your income you are spending. I think that was shocking to me. It's like people are spending how much on coffee? Wow. I do go to Starbucks and I get the breakfast sandwiches because they're delicious. Not good for you, but from a calorie standpoint and a fat standpoint, but they're delicious. If you need them, you could get that protein plate thing they have. Not as delicious. Some grapes and a hard-boiled egg. Give me a sandwich. And that's the thing. I will drink tea, but coffee I'm a hard no-go on. So if you send a non-drinking coffee guy into Starbucks to order your drink, let it be known that you might just get whatever the guy sees up on the screen and goes, yeah, I think so. Because it's so daunting to order coffee if you're not a coffee drinker. Pumps of chocolate, pumps of what? Give them 3. I don't know. Just give them a coffee. So Milwaukee is the best coffee city in the U.S. Rankings find. All right, let's see what this looks like. Let's take a little look-see. While we know Milwaukee had some good coffee options, best coffee city in the U.S., that is a surprise. Whenever I see Milwaukee, I always think of Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days because those were set in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Milwaukee, yeah, I don't think I've ever been there. The closest I believe I've been to Milwaukee is Chicago. Yeah, there you go. But Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, it always made Milwaukee seem like it was kind of cold and, there was snow on the ground and, all that good stuff, which there is. I mean, look at a map. Look at where it is right next to, basically on Lake Michigan. Chilly in the winter there. Probably pretty chilly there right there right now. And if you're in Milwaukee, all right, we're talking about your coffee. Your coffee is apparently number 1. But according to the ranking website listwithclever.com, Brew City is the top coffee city in the country. Brew City being beer. All right. Brew City is the top coffee city in the country, coming in before Portland at number 2, San Francisco at 3, and Buffalo at 4. We're going to look at a map here in a second, but it's interesting. All the good coffee places are basically on the kind of the West Coast, and then probably 2/3 of them are on the East Coast. And some of the worst coffee places are obviously warm weather because you're not drinking as much coffee, like Miami. I mean, you don't go to Miami and say, I'd like a big cup of coffee. Maybe you do because coffee is that important in your life. But I'm not ranking, I'm not saying that coffee's bad. It's got that caffeine. I love caffeine. I just don't get it in coffee, right? So caffeine is good. It's not really good for your heart. It puts a little pressure on your heart. And as you get older, yeah, it's not a good thing. But, neither is living. It's going to kill you, right? So the ranking weighs a variety of coffee shops as well as the best prices. The website states that their top 15 coffee cities have an average of 18 cafes per capita. Well, not here in Seattle. We had 27. That's where we really dig deep here in Seattle. Literally here in Seattle. And because I don't drink coffee, I don't care, and it kind of annoys me, but there is one shopping center where you've got 3 Starbucks within a head-turning radius. You've got, do you really need 3? Well, we've got a drive-in, we got the walk-in at the mall, we've got this other store that's always been there. Like, okay, well, all right. But so we've got 27 per capita in Seattle. I mean, we are home of Starbucks. All right. So there's that. A lot of people want to rank on Starbucks because it's so corporate. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. It's coffee. The website also points to their top 15 cities as having an average price of $4.22 for one cappuccino and spend about 1.6% of their annual income on coffee. 1.6, is that true? 1.6% of their annual income on coffee? That's the latte factor, right? It's the latte factor. Well, I see you spent 1.6% of your income. I was trying to think of what I spend 1.6% of my income that would be roughly equivalent. And I don't know that I have one, along those lines. I don't think I have one. I get my coffee from Monsters, which is 140 milligram per ultra, the big white ones, the big 16-ounce white ones. Yep. And I also do a little pre-workout before my workout. I mean, nothing like putting a little pressure on the heart before you put some pressure on the heart. Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's compared. So we've got $4.22 for one cappuccino. That's compared to $4.47 per cup nationally. And that's costing 1.9% of the average income. We're talking about why Milwaukee, Wisconsin is number one. Where on the average, $4.47, $4.50 for a cup of coffee. I mean, I go to Starbucks, and if my girlfriend orders whatever it is, a double tall, non-fat latte vanilla with 2 pumps of something, I don't know. I don't even know how to say that. You know what I mean? I get anxiety when I go through the drive-thru if I have to order because I'm not a coffee guy and I just don't get it. But when I look at how much we spent, it's like, good Lord, we could have had half a lunch for that. But instead, you get, a little caffeine and it's warm and you got to carry that around and, we went to Starbucks. Milwaukee, according to the ranking, deserves to be the first because it is best at balancing affordable brews with a growing coffee scene. They note that the city's low cost of living gives cafe owners the flexibility that they need to create a unique experience for cafe goers. All right. So you see that in a lot of these polls or these studies is that the more affordable areas, you've got less rent for these coffee places to do their thing. I was reading about a business closing down in Pike Place, which is where the first Starbucks store ever anywhere. It was broken into, multiple times during the whole Chop Chaz thing. It's not close to that, but those peaceful protesters, they went to other places and, they like to go after corporate America, and Starbucks, that store being the first one in the world, got broken into. But there was I forget what kind of business it was. Was it a Seattle T-shirts or something along those lines? Very small store. And they had been broken into, I think, 15 times over the last 2 years. And they were moving, but their rent was being bumped from $8,000 a month to $13,000 a month. Now you got to sell a lot of coffee to make that go. So whereas a city like Milwaukee, which has cheaper commercial real estate, there you go. So you can provide the flexibility they need to create a unique experience for the cafe goers when rent is cheaper. And the complaint about the business moving out of Pike Place, which is, where they throw the fish. You always see that scene. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It is. The crime there, not so cool. But, we try and overlook that. And all right, yeah, you may want to, pack a gun while you watch the guys doing the fishing thing, because it's pretty, after nightfall, which now is 5 o'clock. That's great. After nightfall, you know what? You probably want to not be walking around the streets there. But, it's Seattle's very progressive, so you got to live with that as well. So the city's coffee scene, Milwaukee, they allow new faces to break into the specialty coffee scene, making it America's best coffee city. All right, let's take a look at the rankings and see what that looks like. And this is from the whatever it is, Clever. I think it's a real estate related site. So, this is the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. We are actually talking about making decisions based on where you get the best coffee, because that seems pretty reasonable to me. I mean, I don't know. Real estate. It's so, I like to branch out past real estate, still related to real estate, because real estate, it's gotten so hard talking about how much things have gone up and how little affordability there is. It just feels like I'm whining all the time, and I don't like to do that. So even though I don't like coffee, I'm going to talk about it. So, Americans drink roughly 656 million cups of coffee per day. 656. That seems like a lot. That's a lot. They drank more coffee than bottled water last year, to put it in perspective. All right. So, if there's worse things out there, my grandma, who died a couple of summers ago, or maybe last summer, she drank coffee until the day, literally, she drank coffee. That was at the end, her mind just wasn't quite there, but I was always like, all right, but the caffeine is not great for you, but my grandma's still around, and, she's, it's something people do, and I don't think in moderation, like anything, it's that bad for you, but 656 million cups of coffee a day, that is just nuts. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a quick overview, and we're going to look at the rankings. So Milwaukee, Wisconsin, $3.56 a cup of coffee. $3.56 a cup of coffee. That seems really reasonable. The average annual cost is $926 for a coffee drinker there. And that's 1.5% of their annual income. I believe that is if they drink a cup of coffee every single day. My video guy who came in, he's like, what size coffee is that? And I'm like, I don't really know. Average, in between medium and in between small and large. I don't really know. The big one that spills in your hand, I don't know. And how many coffee shops they have per capita? They have 13. Milwaukee has 13. So 1.9% of their annual income, 1.5% of their income, 12 coffee shops per capita, and $3.56. That's your baseline. $926 a year for Milwaukee residents to drink their coffee. Okay. Second on the list is Portland. They have 27 coffee shops per capita, the same as Seattle. Seattle's way down on the list. We're way down there. Number 3, San Francisco. And what's the cost of a cup of coffee in Portland? It's $4.30. So most of these are over $4. Portland, $4.30. San Francisco, $4.72. In San Francisco, people on average will spend $1,209 on coffee. That's a lot. That is literally the latte factor when you start talking about, who was it? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think he came up with that concept. I can't remember, but it was somewhere along those lines. But in San Francisco, that $1,209 at $4.72 a pop per cup only amounts to 1% of their income. So, they're making more money in San Francisco. They're buying a lot of coffee, and they've got 23 coffee stores per capita. But they, according to these rankings, let's jump down. Let's see. Seattle is at $5.06 a cup of coffee. Okay, now I'm getting outraged. That over $5 a cup of coffee. What were we buying the other day? I think we bought some cookies and they were $5 a thing and they weren't very big. And I was like, really? That's all you get? You get like how many cookies for life? Expensive, right? 2022, we are dealing with some inflation. $5 a cup of coffee. All right. And so $1,300 is what Seattle residents would spend on average. That's 1.6% of their annual income, 27 stores per capita. That's a lot. So let's take a peek down here and see if anything else going on interesting. Indianapolis, you've got coffee at $3.80. You spend $988 a year, 1.6% of your income, and they've only got 8 coffee stores per whatever capita, right? 8, pretty minimal. Kind of gives you an idea. New York, let's just throw out New York. Almost $5 at $4.96. Going to spend close to $1,300 a year at $1,290 a year, 1.6% of your income, and they've got 16 stores per capita. All right, so you kind of get an idea there of what's going on. But let's look at some of the interesting stats. Overall, coffee lovers, they should flock to the north and to the west. Does that make sense? All right. The northern part does. It's colder. Yep. Go to the west. All right. I identify Portland and Seattle with coffee just because I've always heard, the best coffee's in Seattle. Oh, you guys have such great coffee. And those pieces of information typically just fly right over the top of my head, except for like I hear Portland and Seattle. I hear that a lot. And it's like, okay, yeah, apparently we've got good coffee. Whatever. So you go north and west. 6 of the top 15 cities for coffee are on the West Coast, while a whopping 10 are located north and northeast. All right. Okay, so here's a good one. The worst coffee city is Virginia Beach, Virginia. With just 8 coffee shops per 100,000 residents and only 33% as many Google searches for coffee over the last year compared to the most passionate metros. So we've got Google searches in here too. Coffee lovers in Virginia Beach need to have deep pockets. A daily cappuccino costs $5.39. So Virginia Beach needs to learn to balance affordability with providing more coffee. That's literally what we're saying here. And to have a coffee every day, $1,400 in Virginia Beach, 2.6% of their annual income. 2.6% to drink coffee every day in Virginia Beach. That's, you know what? It's a one every day for the weekday. On the weekends, isn't that the day that you definitely go out and get a coffee if you're a coffee person on the weekends? All right, I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to go do this. I always have like my cheat meals where if I'm going to just go crazy and eat a bunch of food, that's going to be on Saturday night because then I've had a workout that day, big cardio workout. Typically on a Saturday, maybe fasted, don't really know. But yeah, that's because I just don't want to take the time to eat before I go, do big workout. And then later that night, have your big meal, go out somewhere, enjoy yourself. And then you spend Sunday recovering before you need to go back to work. That's kind of my game plan at age 53. It seems to work pretty good for me, but no coffee. So the 15 best coffee cities have an average of 18 coffee shops per 100,000 people. 5 more than the national average of 13 coffee shops per 100,000 people. Louisville, Kentucky, Salt Lake City, Memphis, Tennessee, Birmingham, Alabama, and Riverside, California all have over 40 square miles between coffee shops. That's not good. You need more coffee shops, right? Total of 14 metros have fewer than 10 cafes per 10,000 people or 100,000 people. And Memphis being named here twice, one of the worst coffee areas. But you don't ever really think of Memphis. All right, let's go Memphis, Tennessee. Let's go and get some really good coffee. No, you just don't. Same thing though with Milwaukee, right? You always think of beer because of Laverne and Shirley. That's my background. Total stereotype, obviously. A lot of other good things going on in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But, in my head from 1970, whatever it was, when you watched The Fonz and you watched Laverne and Shirley and all those other offshoots, Lenny and Squiggy, those guys were good, right? I mean, there was some funny stuff. Lenny and Squiggy, just their names, Squiggy. Guy's name, his nickname is Squiggy. Had those slick back hairdos from the 50s. We were watching that in the 70s, and you're like, hey, what's going on? Fonzie did his thing. On average, a daily cappuccino would cost residents in the top 15 cities approximately 1.6% of their income. I'm still having a hard time with that number. That seems like a lot, but I guess that's why it is the latte factor. Yeah. So, coffee lovers in Portland, Oregon, Seattle, and Austin, Texas are most likely to be searching for the perfect cup of joe. They have the highest rates of Google searches for the term coffee. So, what's interesting? There's some other things going on that are very similar in Portland and Seattle and Austin, which we don't need to get into here. But if you look at how just progressive things are, I think you'll find a common thread there. Interesting, isn't it? It's really, that on top of the perfect cup of joe. What does that say? Is there a correlation there? I don't really know. Don't really care either. There could be a correlation, but the average cappuccino across the U.S. costs $4.36, which adds up to $1,134 for people who drink coffee once per weekday. So, and it's about 2%. It's 1.9% of the average annual income. That's what Americans spend on coffee if you're doing that. And maybe it's a work thing, right? Maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go to work. Oh, I don't want to. I hate my boss. Oh, it sucks. My job is such a dead-end job. Oh, it's terrible. Or you're just like, all right, I'm not being challenged at work. This is, that whole thing. What can I do? And I think this is what everybody thinks. I'm on my way to work. I need a happy moment for me. I'm going to go get my cup of coffee. That's how I'm with a Monster, right? I'm going to have my happy moment with my Monster, my 16-ounce cold Monster. Yep. Drink cold stuff in the morning. That's just kind of what I do. That's how I get going. And it's got about the same amount of caffeine as, a medium charged coffee. So I don't feel too bad there. The other chemicals, well, yeah, I know. But like I said, life's going to kill you, right? Okay. So that is kind of a top-down look on coffee. Now I'm looking at a map of the best and kind of worst coffee places across the United States, and it's heavily weighted to the West Coast. You've got some of the best coffee there and a couple of the worst. Let's see, worst here, we've got Phoenix. It came in at 44. Because in the middle of August, or, say from April through November, blazing hot in Phoenix. Do you want a cup of coffee? Yep, I want a cup of coffee. It's just not something that you go to. I remember we had a family friend digging a ditch or something at our house when I was a kid, and the guy was drinking coffee, and I was like, no, it's really hot out. It was the middle of summer. It's really hot out and you're digging a ditch and he brought it, his coffee thing. And he goes, well, the theory is you drink something hot, makes you sweat, and then you cool down. And I was like, okay, that makes no sense to me whatsoever, but you're an adult. I'm going to go with that. And I have learned that, I've carried that with me to this day. It was at our Ken Wanda house in Snohomish, Washington. So I would have been the oldest I would have been kindergarten. So 6, I would have been 6 talking to an adult, and it made no sense. But I was like, all right, but you're drinking coffee. So that is my relative mindset to drinking coffee during hot weather. Didn't make sense then to me. Doesn't make sense to me now, but I know that's a thing. Oh, let's just go get a coffee. Okay. It's really hot out, but you want a coffee? What about a Gatorade? How about a Gatorade? You're digging a ditch. How about a Gatorade? We didn't have Gatorade back then because, we didn't know that we needed Gatorade. Other bad places for coffee, Jacksonville, 42. Again, really cold. Virginia Beach that came in at the worst. What else? We got Richmond, Virginia, also really bad. Birmingham, Alabama, down there at 47 in the rankings. Got Nashville down there at 43, Memphis, 49. We got St. Louis. So it's interesting that this Louisiana, those last 5 places that I mentioned are geographically right in the same area. Coffee, not a thing. It's got to be a sociological thing, right? Yeah, we're not doing that. We're doing some bourbon. We're not doing coffee because real men don't drink coffee. I don't know. And then the best coffee places being, how about Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Hartford, you got Milwaukee. And then on the West Coast, you've got Seattle, you got Portland, you got San Francisco, you got San Jose, and you got San Diego. San Diego coming in at 12. I wouldn't have guessed that, but anything goes in California. I mean, literally anything goes. So why wouldn't San Diego? Well, there's one more behind San Diego. Oh, LA is 19th on the list. Okay, whatever. I can't figure out California for the life of me. So those are your numbers. That is your rundown. So the latte factor, it's pretty expensive stuff. But again, you're going to work. You need that little bit of pick-me-up. You're going to do it. But it's costing you between $3.50 if you're in Milwaukee, up to over $5, $5.25, $5.50 in San Francisco. That's a lot of money. But then again, for a little bit of happiness, get your Monday morning going, get your Tuesday morning, any day ending in a Y, get that going, $5. That makes sense. That's not a bad deal. Live your life, enjoy your life. You got to do some of that because otherwise, what's the whole point here? So drink that coffee. I'll drink my Monsters till I find something else better. And I know it's terrible for me, but it's what we're doing. Thanks for being with me here on this episode of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Coffee. Now you know far more than you need to. And at your next cocktail dinner thingaroo, you can bring these stats up. Thanks again for being here. We'll catch up soon. Talk to you then.